Christophe Teigner, who is the CMO of Tiffany watches. Yes, you
Thank
can
you.
applause. We also have Tammy Smulders, who is the CEO of Vice Fashion.
You have a fan club here. Huh?
And Etienne Bardelli, who is a Plasticien artist.
Hello.
And we are waiting for Mr. Triefus, the CMO of Gucci, who is stuck in the traffic jam, so maybe he will arrive in a while. We hope so. So let's begin by ladies. So Tammy, you have a fantastic culture about luxury. We are seeing this new phenomenon of collaborative luxury. So could you explain us if it's a new phenomenon and how do you explain it?
So, I mean, I think that, you know, in the fashion world and the luxury world, designers and creative directors have always looked for new ideas and sources of inspiration. And, you know, this has been going back, we were chatting before, you know, 100 plus years. And, you know, I think it was really more in many ways of, I guess you could say not so much of collaborations early on, but more inspirations. And I know you and I obviously spoke before the panel, and we're talking about the Mondrian dress from Yves Saint Laurent. You know, that's an example of really something that was more, I guess, an inspiration. I mean, he brought that dress out in 1965, whereas Mondrian passed away in the 40s. So he really took inspiration from what Mondrian was doing, as opposed to, I guess, Mondrian sort of interjecting himself into the creative process, and the two working together. But I think that we've seen really over the last 50 years an escalation of true collaboration, initially with artists starting to work with designers, working with luxury houses to really be a sparring partner to them, or you really saw a creative director or a designer who actually maybe collects a certain artist or is personally inspired by that artist. And that goes back, you know, to, for example, one of the Supreme, which is obviously a very hot brand right now. If you go back into the 80s when they were, you know, really getting off the ground, and Supreme was collaborating with John Baldessari and Jeff Koons, really creating skateboards. But that really brought us into, I think, the more recent, you know, we saw an era where, you know, a high point was Morikami collaborating with Louis Vuitton for that really iconic collection where they, you know, were inspired to recreate the logo in different colors. And that really spawned a whole generation of brands that were working with fine art. And most recently, of course, we're seeing a preponderance of luxury and fashion brands, or sort of high fashion brands, actually taking inspiration from street art and from actually street luxe. So, you know, it's really gone through different incarnations, and it's really had a different purpose. And today we're really seeing it to some degree around inspiring a creative director, but we're increasingly seeing it actually as a tactic to access new audiences, and to, whether it's to find a younger audience, a more multicultural audience, an international audience, to appeal to a completely different group of people. These kinds of collaborations are helping luxury brands to really access a new set of potential customers.
Excellent. So Etienne, as an artist, what is your point of view on this history of collaboration, and what are the new trends you see arriving?
Okay, so historically, artists have been always close to powerful leaders, actually, religion, royalty, and they have been always, all along the time, like close to like those leaders actually, and those leaders used art as a media actually to put the power on a picture or to promote themselves actually, and to engrave their image in the history actually. And then now the leaders are not anymore royalty, of course, religion a little less actually, of course, and now brands are the new leaders actually. So artists, it's quite natural that artists move a bit to the big brands, and actually it's not like the desire, they want to go there, but actually there is something like really like chemical that really magnetic them together actually.
And do you see new trends that we should look at?
But actually, for years, we have been like brands asking to artists to collaborate with them. And I think it's quite new, but artists want also to collaborate with brands, and because they give them credibility, like a big visibility too. And I think maybe in the future, maybe a soon future, we can see like brands enter the museum by the way of artists actually.
Jean-Christophe.
Tell me.
It's you?
Yeah, it's me.
So as a luxury maison, you have to juggle between the authority of your maison and this collaboration. So at Tiffany, you are doing a lot. How do you juggle between all these different way of communicating?
Well, I mean, there is not one way. I mean, it's either directional or non-directional. And if I take the example of Etienne, I mean, it's like, you know, our maison or luxury house are giving sometimes a lot of freedom to express themselves. And it's a case for, one of the examples I have in mind is our collaboration with the Vuitton Museum. And we gave, you know, kind of a white card to some artists to express themselves with some pieces of art that we have been exposing around the world in our stores. And behind that was that value of sharing the culture, sharing, you know, values, and sharing their point of view and their perception as well of Tiffany. And if I can make just a step back, I mean, we have been doing that today because our founding statement at Tiffany, and it started in 1837, so it's like approximately we are celebrating the 180 years this year. So the idea, the founder is Charles Lewis Tiffany went in Europe to pick up the best luxury items he has seen in the UK, in France, in Italy, and brought them back in New York to show them to the customers, to the American citizen, to educate them, to teach them about a different culture and a different approach. So in a way, I mean, what we are seeing today about, you know, sharing culture, it was our mission statement 180 years ago. So in a way, there is nothing new and everything is new at the same time. And that's why, you know, our company is kind of democratic luxury. You can find, you know, pieces at $150 up to $1 million. I don't know the change.
Would you like euros, to give the address of your boutique in Paris?
Yeah. Champs-Élysées, Rue de la Paix.
Perfect.
Everywhere.
Great. Etienne, you had a great history with collaboration and with proper art. We discovered with Jean-Christophe that maybe you did a graph on his house in the early 90s. Could you explain us your history and the different moments you have lived as an artist and as a collaborative artist?
Okay, so I started graffiti when I was 12, actually. I was quite young. And I did it for years, actually, until like last week. But I really was concentrated on this for like maybe 10 years, really intensively. And then
what was your name at that time? Because you changed your name.
Yeah, my name was Acro at the beginning, and I was really at the really start. And I keep that name for like all my teenage. And then after I moved to Paris, and I've been like I started as a graphic designer after art studies, and I keep that name actually for signing my graphic design for record covers, for luxury works. So I moved petit à petit to art direction actually, and on a certain point, I feel less sincere in my work, actually. I was more into like a strategic démarche, something really, not really personal, actually. So on a point, I decided to stop and to concentrate on my artistic career. It was 10 years ago, and I stopped with my name, my nickname, Acro, and which was quite famous for graphic design, and I could like afford a lot of work by that name. And I concentrate on my really personal name and personal work. And actually, now, 10 years after, it's like a new career that que j'ai recommencé, quoi. And then I start again to make collaboration with brands, but with my real name and with a really strong creative process.
And do you consider that your collaborative work is part of your work, your artistic work?
But yes, actually, brands or people want to work with you because they are catched by the form of your work, actually. So there is like a connection on this point, actually. You collaborate for the form, for what it could express visually. But it's a bit different on your own work because you're looking for something which is really personal. It's like more like really something, some kind of really personal work. I mean, like it's close to psychanalysis actually. And no, maybe not today, but later.
You have a coach.
But yeah, actually, you can go on that track with brands actually, because there is like many experience. Yeah, there is things you don't really maîtriser.
Okay. Master.
Okay.
Excellent. Jean-Christophe, the Maisons are sometimes criticized for their collaboration. For instance, when you are doing something with Lady Gaga, is it about culture, is it about art, or is it about marketing?
Let me stop you right now. I mean, it's like the partnership with Lady Gaga is, you know, made so much sense. I mean, looking back now, because we used Lady Gaga a year ago, more or less, to help us launching a new collection called Hardware, and it's making sense for many reasons. She's from New York. It's a lady, and she wanted to be not that Gaga anymore at the time. She wanted to work with Tony Bennett and change her career, give another approach or strategic path to her career. So we wanted to give her the voice to discuss and to approach that new career with her. But having said that, we have been doing something great with her. I mean, it's like she's a phenomenon. I mean, she has a fantastic reach. I mean, the impact we had during the launch was enormous. On top of that, we were the first one to do an advertising during the Super Bowl. Yeah. So a luxury brand advertising during the Super Bowl. I mean, something unique. But again, it's part of our culture of being democratic and popular. And on top of those big partnerships we are doing, we are as well working with some more niche artists, famous as well. Someone like Christophe Neiman. For those who know him, he's a famous illustrator. He's doing covers for the New Yorker. And again, we are sharing the same value with this person. So we gave him, you know, kind of a free card. The idea was, okay, there was a brief, but still, we wanted his DNA to be expressed on his artwork for us. So we're talking about wit, but intelligence, things like that. I mean, and at the end, whatever it is, Christophe Neiman or Lady Gaga, we are into the popular culture. So that was making a lot of sense for us.
And what is he doing for you, Christopher?
He has been doing a couple of illustrations to launch the new home and accessories collection, just started in October. Collection launched by Reed Krakow. I mean, it's a fantastic success. So
excellent.
Very
Do you
happy.
want to give again the address?
You know it.
In order to avoid the critique about being too much opportunistic, I know that you are doing things on a very long-term view. Could you let us know what you did?
I mean, and it's the same for every single maison I've been talking here. I mean, when you have such an heritage of 180 years, 200 years, I mean, you can obviously take some risk, and that's what Mr. Triefus was supposed to tell us about Gucci.
Maybe you will arrive.
Maybe you will arrive at one point. But his maison took some risk and being super creative and took a new road. On our side, it's not that we are not taking any risk. It's just that we are trying to be really on brand, you know, following our DNA. And sometimes you get lucky. I mean, sometimes you do a partnership that happens to be a success. And just one example, I mean, when we partnered with the studio in Hollywood, and especially for the famous movie Breakfast at Tiffany, we didn't know that it would be such a success. I mean, who could tell you that? I mean, the film won 2 Oscars. The movie is famous. Everybody's talking about it, and still today, I mean, it's still very present in our customers' mind, as well as the overall public. So for that reason, you might have followed that, but there was an auction a couple of weeks ago, and we bought the script of the movie, and as well, we created a Blue Box Cafe. So now you can really take a breakfast at Tiffany on the 5th Avenue. But it's not much a business exercise. The idea is not to do some sales, even though it's working super well. I mean, just let me tell you, we have a waiting list of 3,500 people for the last weekend. So, and the first week, because we did not have the check-in reservation, chicken booking, we were using a lineup. So on one side, you had the lineup for Trump or against Trump, and on the other side, you had the lineup for Tiffany and to go to have a breakfast. And
Two vision of luxury.
Exactly. Yeah, not sure. Whatever. But most importantly, it's a way for us to give the opportunity to our customers to celebrate their love, not only their love of the brand, but more importantly, what they happen to be in their life and to remember their best memories when they bought their engagement ring or when they went for a wedding and things like that. So it's a celebration more than anything else.
Excellent. And you, Etienne, in order to protect your DNA, how do you behave when you are collaborating with Hermès, for instance? How do you behave in order to avoid to betray yourself?
Well, actually, the fact I've been a graphic designer and an art director, I know exactly what they want. They come to you with an idea, you can really understand it, actually. But also, you can really feel that they really agree with your heart, with the way you express. And on this point, you can really merge ideas. And for be precise, actually, the best way to collaborate is to be really sincere. Actually, if you go there for money or if you go there to make commercial work, it doesn't work, actually. You don't like have the good ideas coming. So you have to be sincere, and you have really to keep that in mind. It's really, really important.
Yeah. Could you give us a bit of background regarding your collaboration with Hermès, the last one?
So actually, they asked me to make a presentation for Pierre Hardy shoes, and actually they saw a machine. I made a machine that turn and play the piano. It's like complicated and at the same time really simple piece.
Where can we see that on internet?
It was something like 2 years ago. It was in Palais de Tokyo, in Voyage à Nantes. It has been shown in Hamburg, in many places. It's a lot of places for a piece, actually. And the fact it was simple and funny really Hermès really reacted to it, actually.
Yeah.
Surprising?
Yeah, actually it's like quite simple, and that's why Hermès really loved it, actually. I think they are really into this kind of creativity and simplicity, actually. And they asked me for being myself, actually, for this collaboration, and to not to concentrate that much on the product, actually, just to propose something that really fit in this kind of frame of a shop or a shop window or something like this, but to be personal.
And how did you do? You got a brief and then you came back with an idea and then you develop it on your own, or you had to have regular discussion with them? Did they negotiate on what you did?
But for negotiation, actually, I have an agent for this, which is our bridge.
But on the idea, did they review it?
Of course, there is like a brief, because they really expect something really technical that works, actually. I think they're like everybody, they would be afraid to work with an artist. Mm-hmm. But when you see like your RPs, they can be really confident, actually. Mm. And so you have a kind of brief that explain on the side what they expect, and on the other side the history of the house. Actually, mm-hmm. It's quite important. And yeah, you exchange as much as possible. That's the best way, actually. Yeah. I think you really make the piece together. It's really the point, actually. If you keep a distance, actually, it doesn't really work. Even if I work with different artists on some pieces, like with musicians or something like this, if you work on your side, it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Never. So you really have to exchange. And brand is the same, like it's a collaboration, actually. It's a real collaboration. Yeah.
And Tammy, as an observer, you are also creating a lot of collaboration between brands and the artists with whom you are working. Do you think that this is the end of traditional advertising and that everything will become collaborative?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think that every brand has their own expression of who they are in a purest possible sense. And typically the institutional campaign of a fashion house or luxury house will be very pure to what they are right now. Oftentimes, of course, as interpreted by the current creative director for that brand. And then they will layer on top of that different types of collaborations. And so you will always, which will help them to, as I said, reach new audiences or to really flex the muscles of the brand. To see the brand go into new territories and to see the brand explore different areas. So typically these types of collaborations are not long-term. I mean, they could be one season, they could be a month, sometimes they're a matter of days. But they're usually a temporary situation that allows the brand to migrate from where they're kind of, their core into different areas. So I think there will always be the place, and in fact, it's actually very important that brands continue to have their own expression free from collaboration, but that they can actually explore different areas and different facets of the brand through a series of collaborators. And it can be an artist, it can be you'll see a different type of fashion designer, maybe a street designer working, somebody who works in kind of in more streetwear, collaborating with a high fashion brand. We're seeing even people in dancers, I mean, all sorts of artistic disciplines collaborating. But this really just enables them to do different types of things. But I don't see it as a replacement for advertising in its purest sense. It's another thing to do on top of what you would already be doing with your own campaign and your own creative team, in-house creative team.
And according to you, what are the best practices in terms of collaboration? Of course, Gucci has done a lot of work in this area. I think that Mr. Triefus is still in his taxi. But could you comment the best practices you have seen?
Well, I mean, I think that, as Etienne alluded to, the briefing process is very important up front. And that is really laying out the respective roles of each of the collaborators. And a collaborator, the word is co. Co means two, and it's not just sending somebody off in a direction and whatever they do. I mean, collaboration is working together and realizing something together. So I think setting out the objectives of why are you doing this collaboration? Is it just fun and you just want to have some fun? Are there specific business objectives? Are you actually trying to access a new audience? Are you trying to show an edgier side to your brand? Are you trying to get into a new market, a new product line perhaps? We're seeing, whether it's, Gucci collaborating with mini cars. I mean, we see these kinds of things as well. So we see the application of a brand to something in a different field that they may not already, be producing products. And so, I mean, there's different types of collaborations and there's different reasons for doing those. So I think being very clear up front as to what the objectives are, what the guidelines are, what the expectations are. And of course, as Etienne alluded to, there are, whether it's technical aspects to what it is that you're designing or specific timelines that you're working to or budgets that you're working to. I mean, there's a variety of considerations that all of the parties need to be on board and understanding of and to get the kind of outcome and then a realization of what you want to achieve in that outcome. And that all is part of a disciplined process of how you go about doing these kinds of collaborations. So in terms of how we do that, we work, of course, each of our titles in Vice. I mean, we have Garage magazine, which is expert in working in fashion and luxury brands, actually collaborating with the art world and the design world. And this is we see ourselves as facilitators of these, or an idea where we actually see our own team as the instigators in many of these kinds of collaborative environments and actually contributing to those. So, I think having a team of people that are experienced either in-house or whether it's at a place like us or whether it's at an agency, helping you navigate that and get the best possible outcomes for all parties and produce something interesting.
Great. We have still 1 minute in order to give some advice to the attendees. So what would you say, Jean-Christophe, as a maison, what will be your advice to do great collaboration?
I think it's a mix or a right balance between DNA, follow the brand DNA, and being audacious and creative. So if you are on that road, I think you are safe.
And what about you as an artist, Etienne? What would you say?
I think just be sincere. It's like the best way to do something really creative and personal, actually, for both the brand and the artist.
And you, Tammy, as a media, what will be your last word as an advice?
Well, I think very much this, which is do something different, do something amazing, do something that the market hasn't seen. Those are the kind of collaborations that get noticed.
And I think that we have...
You have apparently 14 more seconds.
I think that we can applaud him.
Here he is.
You're the visitor.
Over here?
Vous avez, you have 14 seconds to make your final
I think I can negotiate.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much, and sorry for our
No,
traffic
it's okay.
jam.
It's been quite an experience. I've never ridden on the back of a motorbike with someone who drives on the pavement instead of the road, so I'm here.
Thank you so much. Yes, we can close again.
Okay.
So I had tons of questions for you,
Yeah.
but maybe can you explain us how you juggle between your own DNA, your directional speech, and the collaboration, the numerous collaboration you are doing with great artists?
Yeah.
How do you play that?
Look, I think today for Gucci, there is a very clear mandate to make sure that everything that we do is very honest and authentic. And that means that it has to be absolutely connected and integral to what you describe as the DNA of the brand. And so for the last 3 years, as we embarked on this new chapter with a new vision of our creative director, Alessandro Michele, there have been some principles that we put in place to allow us to make sure that there was that authenticity. And one of the fundamental principles of Gucci today is, to a degree, this concept of co-creation. And to do something that in the past luxury brands have, in fact, tried to avoid. And that is to, in a way, create a sort of open source system of creativity. So that has been at the root of a lot of the narrative of the storytelling that we've been engaged in the last 3 years.
Excellent. And then, do I have a few minutes? And then regarding your collaboration with Dapper Dan or Gucci Ghost, some people in the media said, who is taking benefit of this collaboration? Is it Gucci? Is it the artist? What is your point of view on that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've been involved in different types of collaboration, and clearly one of the things that, that Alessandro has done in a way, is pay homage to the people who've been paying homage to Gucci, which is an interesting intellectual exercise. But the fact that Gucci, after nearly 100 years, is celebrated sometimes officially and sometimes unofficially. And in the case of Trevor Andrew, Gucci Ghost, and Dapper Dan, these were two creative artists who were inspired by the power of a brand and were effectively creating or abusing, to a degree, the trademark in their own artwork. So instead of taking the traditional route that a luxury brand might take, i.e. to engage in a legal action, Alessandro instead felt that it was, as I say, these were artists paying homage to the brand of Gucci and to the language of Gucci, and therefore he thought that it would be interesting to engage more in a creative collaboration to see where that might lead. And so with both of those individuals, there have been a dialogue, a creative dialogue that, again, has, I think, given us a very rich narrative to bring to life also on our social platforms.
And what are the key success factors in order to succeed?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, which is today, if you look at I think the brands that are most successful are those that are having a very honest conversation or an honest engagement with especially the millennials. Millennials and Generation Z are the, I would say, most sophisticated of their generations ever. They are very knowledgeable, very thoughtful about the way that they engage with brands, and consequently, if you don't create a dialogue, a conversation, a narrative, a brand positioning that is authentic, honest, transparent, they, I think, will see through that very quickly.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you to all of you.
Okay.